Okay, we're going to call the Wednesday, January 19th, 2022 Board of Education meeting back to order. Everyone please silence your electronic devices and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
Yes. We'll have some, let's just say, 6.6, there'll be a date update. 6.7, we'll have the motion had a couple of things that we needed to add. That'll be all reflected in my minutes. We'll be adding 6.13, which is the Charlton School for a special ed student. Personnel considerations, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. We had some date changes because their fingerprints had cleared, and the one bus driver was supposed to start on the 18th but decided to come on the 19th.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion for the additions and deletions? Mr. McFerrin, Mr. Ross, all in favor? All right. I need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the January 5th, 2022 BOE meeting. Mr. Hislop, Mr. Engel, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We don't have any hearings and petitions, correct? Okay. Need a motion for one or all of the business considerations.
Make a motion for all 6.1 through 6.13.
Okay, do I have a second? Mr. McFerrin, do we have discussion on any of these?
Just a big donation.
Donation.
Which one was it?
6.8.
6.8.
Seymour Fox Memorial Foundation.
Yes, we would like to thank the Seymour Fox Memorial Foundation for a donation of $4,000 for Ravena school pantry programs in our middle school and high school. Really appreciate that. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's passed. Okay, motion for one or all of the personnel considerations.
Make a motion for all 7.1 through 7.
Okay, do I have a second? Mrs. Burns, any discussion? All in favor? Motion's passed. 8.1 is informational items only. 9.1, Board of Ed. I have nothing to report. Any other board members have anything they would like to discuss? Bring up?
When was it, last week? It was all running together now. Last Thursday, yeah. Well, jazz bands and select choir, choruses or choirs or whatever. Really good. Impressed. I like the new band guy. Short, sweet, to the point, and right on it with the music. I like it.
Great. I will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
Since we met 2 weeks ago, there's only been about 8 substantial updates from the Department of Health in various forms, both the CDC and the New York State Department of Health and Albany County. And we've continued, the superintendents have continued to have meetings with Dr. Whalen from Albany County Department of Health. And we know that in public watching the news, we understand that the number of cases in the county have been just phenomenal in the past month or so, especially in the last week. And as a result of that, Albany County and New York State have discontinued their contact tracing processes. And the impact that that'll have on our school is that they will not be expecting us to be sharing contact tracing lists with them going forward. Just in the span of time we came back on January 3rd until now, we've had over 400 students and staff placed in quarantine, either because they've been COVID positive or because they've been close contact. So what we recognize is we'll be changing in-house. Oh, and also we can't forget the 5-day quarantine or isolation versus the 10-day. That's another big one that's happened. Is that what we expect to see happen here is that we will follow the county's lead to some extent in that we will be conservative in our tracing practices. We want students to be in school as much as possible, and staff obviously. Obviously, keeping a close eye on those that we know are medically fragile or for other reason are uniquely susceptible when they become ill. In their contact with someone who's positive, and we still will be doing tracing in areas where we're definitive, such as high-risk sports, perhaps potentially areas where we know students are masked off and have been exposed to a positive case. Notifications will change a little bit. At the elementary school, we're going to migrate over to some letters, email communications to families when there's a positive case in the classroom, encouraging them to monitor their children's health. At the secondary level, we'll do that with teams, and at the high school level, we'll do it with grade levels. It's much harder to identify individual classes at the high school level, but at least for now, we'll be sending out email communications so that families are aware that there's been a positive case and that they should monitor their children's health. And of course, we'll let staff know when there's been a positive case in their classrooms. We'll be sharing some more detailed information with our staff tonight, and then later, at the end of the day tomorrow, we'll be sharing it with families. And it will continue to evolve. The transmission rate has been very high at this particular form of the virus, but the duration of the illness seems to have been a little bit less. So being able to come back on day 6 if someone is well has been very helpful. And we know the way things go. We find out someone is positive usually at least 2 days after they're positive, and sometimes longer. So by the time we are in the process, most of the quarantine and isolation has already passed for the 5 days. We've talked before about long-range planning around our instructional needs, around our financial status, and then what we want to do around facilities. And we'll be organizing a committee, a long-range planning committee, to start to address these needs. We had talked about the potential of some short range goals for potentially going out a referendum in this May, smaller projects with money that we have available right now. And then, of course, looking at larger scale projects that will require more time for stated approval, but also at a time when we'll be more fiscally viable. We have a debt that's rolling off. But expect that we'll be asking for representation from our community, from our staff, and from the board to assist with that process so that we are sure we stay on our timeline. And we were, discussing a couple things. We met with our architect, John Sharkey, last week, and our O&M leaders to talk through what types of things we believe would be priorities around that. We're going to involve our buildings and grounds or facilities committee in that decision-making process so that we can ideally hit that May mark. It's tight. John's talked about that before. In other words, we really need to have some decisions around the smaller projects that we'd like to do in the next 2 months in order to meet, which is approximately a 3-month deadline to get approval. I can't remember the acronym that John used, but SECRA? Yeah. Get the approval so that we can make sure we make the ballot in May.
I think, Dr. Bailey, one of the things, if we look at some things, I know we've taken some steps here in the library to improve the high school, but I would recommend that maybe some people take a look at the new library in Cairo because they've done a lot of renovations out there, and we were out there for a basketball game on Saturday, and like I was trying to peek through the windows, and they have different computer stations set up. It's pretty impressive. They have some new computers, a lot of new furniture and things like us. So it could give people some ideas of what would help as far as educational needs in the library.
Excellent, thank you.
So.
Yeah. We deployed our communications advisory committee survey prior to the holiday, prior to December holiday. We had about 400 returns on that. We closed the survey on Friday, and our committee will be coming back together this coming Monday to look at the results of that, and ideally will be informative for how we improve our relationships with our community and our staff. And lastly, along with what Bray said, I was able to attend a recital yesterday. Our Tri-M Music Honor Society held a recital during 10th period of 2 of our all-state students, Renee Rivers and Aiden White, and they each performed 2 or 3 pieces from their college audition repertoire. There were probably about 25 to 30 students there. A lot of high school staff came down to hear it as well. But so awesome to hear kids demonstrating the skills that they've been learning over the last 10 or 12 years. You know, you don't get a chance to see that in many other disciplines, but it was such a treat. And it's the, what you call it, the first, the first annual, no, first of its kind, and ideally they'll continue to do this process over the course of the year. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Engelhardt.
So just to remind folks of some of the normal activities going on, I always ask our CCS, as our curriculum content specialists, of the activities going on within the school. We had a class that dug deep into research and design. It was a 2nd grade class that made birdhouses with Miss Manning at her steam station. So we're excited about that. They were excited to show that off. We're going to try to have a story on that, so check the website out for that. Also at Peter B, that was Peter B. Peter B and the high school have collaborated in the past. Dr. Hushmendy's class does a creative writing where they create children's stories, and then they share it with our elementary students. And I don't believe they were able to do that last year. This year they were able to do that, so they were excited. One of Dr. Hushmendy's students said it was the best experience this year so far. And the students were really happy to go back to their elementary school and share that. I don't think I shared this last time, but there were some excited middle schoolers who were able to tape Mr. Adamek to the wall, and that was because of positive referrals, a goal that they were able to do. So happy for them, maybe happy for Mr. Adamek too. So if you're willing to do that, I'm sure we could also do another positive referral for anyone in the room who might want to be taped to the wall. Please check out our website too. We've been doing our featured teacher. Mrs. Kirk from A.W. Becker is our featured teacher for this month. She teaches at A.W. Becker, so it's great to see that. Information regarding pre-kindergarten is out. Official enrollment doesn't begin until February 22nd, but you can fill out that paperwork and get a head start on that. We would appreciate it. And I know the C&I committee minutes are on our agenda, but I just wanted to share 2 really exciting things, and committee members feel free to jump in. Miss Martin has been taking over. She took over as curriculum content specialist for CTE. She is just plugging away. She's very close to filling out or completing the paperwork for our application for our first CTE pathway. There's 2 things we have to do. We have to kind of settle on an official assessment for that. And then also we're just waiting for paperwork for Columbia Green. We have to have one of our courses that offers credit courses. So we're looking at our marketing class for that. Anything around CTE? I know that Mr. Revley had asked 2 C&I meetings ago around OSHA courses. So she did look into that, and there's a possibility. It's a 10-hour course. And we could do that. It's about $25 a student. So it's something that we're going to continue to look into. We want, obviously our students to leave with a diploma, but if any other certificate we can give them above and beyond that would be great.
Good.
Can I do one more thing?
Sure.
I didn't know if you want to talk about CTE. The other thing is Ms. McLaughlin talked about we were able to participate in a pilot through New York State Education Department. It's called the Individual Arts Assessment Pathway. I won't give the acronym now. It's very portfolio-based, project-based learning, and we think it'll marry really well with our arts and music program. So her next step is to create a committee to look at implementation. So she'll be doing that, and she's been on that committee since the beginning, the New York State Committee. So she's been a really great liaison for that, and we might have to do a little bit of coursework change, mostly renaming. But we'll talk about that as we get to it. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Moran.
First things, I would like you all have a 22-23 budget development calendar. One of the things we'll be talking about at the next meeting is our initial revenue review with an update on enrollment. You'll also be getting a overview of some of the foundation aid. Again, you might have seen the governor's figures were released yesterday. We got them early today. The initial governor's figures are very favorable for Ravena. It's about $808,000 more But one of the challenges with that is that some of those aid formulas are now working, so they can change midstream. So we're going to be looking at that. We'll talk about that, some of the foundation aid, what are the challenges with that, how it can change. And again, we always know that the number that the governor puts out isn't generally where we're going to end up, but I'll give you an idea in better format next time we meet. I also want to let you know that, as we all know, transportation continues as staffing does with some of the COVID challenges. Transportation is also a challenge. We're coming up with trying to look at different ways that we will be able to provide 10th period. It seems to be an ongoing problem for us. One of the things we're doing as recruitment efforts, I met with our communications person today. We're working on flyers. I have to give a shout out. Darcy and Rhonda are really working hard in transportation. They have an interim director with them, Karen Schrader. They've put together a flyer they're going to put out in all the local businesses. We're also going to ask some of our local pizzerias if they'll send home flyers to everybody about what to take to be a bus driver, and call this number for more information. I know that we put a little bit of money aside in some of the COVID funds for recruitment efforts as we try to hire. We're going to put a new billboard up. We had some success in that. We got 2 staff members, which is better than none. The internal audit is underway. Again, the internal audit is one that we have annually. It's a requirement for all schools with over 100 employees. They'll be on that process. We met with the Audit and Finance Committee on Friday about that started. We're wrapping up W-2 seasons. The W-2s will be out by the end of the month. Again, just to give you an idea, we have an annual Medicaid audit. It changes format every single year. This year is totally different. This year they've given a random group of students and the services that receive. For those of you that don't know it, when we provide a related service for one of our students, we get reimbursed through Medicaid for that. It represents probably somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 in revenue for us. So this year, instead of doing a financial recap, they now want to make sure that we keep all of the paperwork that goes with those related services. So we're in the middle of that audit. That'll be hopefully done by the end of February. The budget development, Sue Harris and I will be meeting with the elementary schools tomorrow to get their thoughts on how we want to roll out general classroom supplies. That'll be with the 2 building leaders. From there, we will roll it out with the staffs. I have a meeting set up with the middle school leadership, and we'll be doing so with the secondary schools and the curriculum content specialists next week. Again, the budget work calendar that you've been given, I want you to know that I did put a room on March 23rd for a possible budget workshop. We only have 2 scheduled right now, meetings, but I want to make you aware that we may need one, depending on how we all feel about the budget and where we are. I'm trying to think what else I have, and that's about all I have right this minute.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any new business they would like to discuss or add to the agenda?
Can we get on the agenda some updates on actually what end of year activities are starting to look like? Whether it's student or
I think we probably,
advisor?
yeah, we have something here, guidelines for planning ahead for school events. So I think, we probably, like an update maybe on prom, graduation.
Did we put, graduation is on Friday this year?
Correct. We moved it to Friday 2 years ago, and of course, all kinds of things have happened since then, yes. When, I think in one of the meetings in December, because you're right, it's an ongoing topic for the board, we promised we would project out 2 months about what our practices would be around certain events, but we're getting close to that window now, so by the time we meet in February, we really will be talking about all those things, so I'll make sure we have an update.
Okay, good. Anything else? Any updates on any of these old business items?
Access for students. I know it's something that comes back from time to time, but I think the infrastructure's there now. I think we're waiting on it, and I'd really like to see what the plan is. And we're halfway through, a little bit over halfway through this year. Realistically, I'd like to see something in place for the beginning of next year. So I'd like to see a plan.
Yeah, what we had said for the email, the concerns that we've had is that we would allow that to be an instructional decision here at the high school. So we are just waiting to meet a group of people to have that to see what areas we thought would be most relevant to be able to open up a little bit. Rather than making it a technical, a technology decision, we want it to be driven by, but for all the reasons that you'd said, the students that are reaching out, they're being scouted by coaches, they're trying to communicate with their colleges, get information from the AP or SAT, those are
Right.
all.
So it really,
Yeah.
it impacts your junior and senior class.
Yeah, it does.
More than the others, but I just would like to see it. And then obviously, in addition to that, we've talked about having a guest Wi-Fi. We've seen it at other schools. I think, again, the infrastructure's there now. I just want to see what the plan is because
Yep.
we've kind of kicked this can down the road for multiple years now.
Yep. Well, we had said, mentioned, I think maybe at the last meeting, we anticipate having the Wi-Fi open to staff by February, the first week in February, which has been a long time waiting too. Our buildings, some of the buildings are just horrible for Wi-Fi or cell service. And then we'd expected in the middle of February to do that, but I'll give you a more
Great.
accurate update. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Committee reports are attached. We have no policy adoption or review, no hearings and petitions. Next BOE meeting is February 2nd. Before you know it, we'll be in February recess. We have no reason to go into executive session. I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. McFerrin, Mrs. Klein, all in favor? Aye.